What's up, everyone? This is your girl, Cola E, the Great, bringing you commentary on the Harriet Tubman movie. Now, we are in the den tonight. It will not always be this way. We are setting up a studio for regular commentary on a regular basis, and we're creating a family of like-minded people. And not always like-minded people. Those who want to chime in and have an opposing conversation, that's fine too. But I ask that you respect me and that you respect the family members that's in the house. It's okay to disagree. It's not just about what you say, but it's how you say it. So I'm going to tell you right now off top, anybody that come in here with a whole bunch of negativity, I will not have it and you will be blocked. You will be blocked. So please don't bring no negativity to this channel. It's not all about what you say, it's how you say it. And just please make sure you respecting the family as I will respect you. You will get blocked if you bring that negative energy in here. All right. Don't mind opposing ideas, but it's all in how you say it. And we will agree to disagree and keep it moving. And we'll do it all in love. Again, I am Cola E, the Great, and you will be seeing more of me. And tonight's commentary is on the Harriet Tubman's movie. There is so much controversy surrounding this movie. Now, I've seen it. Did I like it? I'm not going to tell you that just yet. But the real question is, for those who haven't seen it, and even for those who have seen it, is it Rotten Tomatoes or a brilliant work of art? In my opinion, it's both. Okay, now, don't get distracted because I'm looking to the sides. I have my notes to the sides. I tried to video on a camera. Camera wasn't working out, so now I got video on my computer. So just bear with me while we're doing this. So, before we get started, I'm going to read a review based on focus features. Okay? And I'm going to read it because I want to state what they're saying verbatim. I don't want to add anything or take anything away. This is a movie review. And so the opinion of Focus Features says, based on the thrilling and inspirational life of an iconic American freedom fighter, Harriet Tubman tells an extraordinary tale of Harriet Tubman's escape from slavery and transformation into one of America's greatest heroes. Her courage, ingenuity, and tenacity freed hundreds of slaves and changed the course of history. And this was written by Focus Features. And I agree, but they left a lot out. My review is this. This movie is based on the heroic, courageous, inspiring, spiritual life of freedom fighter Harriet Tubman. It entails this freedom fighter not just talking the talk, but walking the walk, by assisting hundreds of slaves to escape from the oppression of slavery to a life of freedom. On foot by night, hitting in the back of buggy or riding train during the day for 100 miles to 600 miles, depending on the part of the South one was traveling from. She and slaves endured a long, tumultuous, dangerous journey. Along with the help of Quakers, abolitionists, and following the direction of God, she was able to outsmart slave catchers and deliver travelers from slave territory to freedom land. That's my review of it, and that was my take. The cast consists of Cynthia Erivo, who everybody is talking about right about now for many different reasons, but we'll get into that in a little bit. She played Harriet Tubman. Leslie Odom Jr. played William Steele. Joe Alwyn played Gideon Brodus. Clark Peters played Ben Ross. Vanessa Bell Calloway played Rit Ross, who was Harriet Tubman's mother in the movie. Omar J. Dorsey played Bigger Long. You guys remember that name for those who haven't seen it. And for those who have seen it, I know you remember who Bigger Long is. Henry Hunter Fall played Walter. Tim Guiney played Thomas Garrett. Nick Basta played Fox. Joe Lee Anderson played Robert Ross. Antonio J. Bell played Henry Ross. C.J. Macbeth played Janiah Ross. Alex Louder played Jane. Aria Brooks played Anger. And Jonelle Monáe. Y'all know who Jonelle Monáe is. She signed to P. Diddy. I think she is anyway. She plays Marie Buchanan, and she did a wonderful job. And you know what? And I think all the actors did a wonderful job. Moving on to box office. The opening weekend, USA on November 3rd, they made $11,676,000. Okay, and I think they grossed worldwide 14,409 and $360,000. And I'm not sure if I said that right for the opening weekend in the USA, that they made 11,676,720. Okay, and again, worldwide cumulative, they made $14,409,360,000 worldwide. Now, my opinion, cinematography, it was great. It was great. Everything matched up with the timeline in the years that it happened. The cinematography was great. Did it persuade? Yes or no? Yes, in my opinion, because you really bought the role of Harriet Tubman. At least I did. From the movie, I gained that she was a freedom fighter and that she rescued hundreds, from my research, thousands, but the movie, hundreds of people from slavery to freedom land. And you really bought into the role. I mean, they really hit hard her action in going back to the South and assisting the slaves and traveling from the South to the North by way on foot, traveling by night, in the buggy, on the train. They really captured those moments. So I was drawn in emotionally and mentally. Was it informative? Yes. For a person that never heard of Harriet Tubman's story, you hear Harriet Tubman, but you haven't heard her story. It was very informative. What you will walk away with is that she helped in the assistance of freeing slaves and carrying them, like I said, foot, buggy, train, from the South to the North. She assisted in that. If you don't know anything about Harriet Tubman, that's what you will walk away with after you leave the movie. So yes, I got to give it to him. Got to give him a thumbs up on that. Was it entertaining? It was entertaining. It was entertaining. And I don't necessarily know if a biography should be entertaining, but the adventures of Harriet Tubman, they were entertaining. They were thrilling. It was suspenseful. It was spiritual. It was entertaining. And don't you click off because I said spiritual. I will explain, because I've seen a lot of commentary that kind of made fun of it. But if you haven't done your research, if you hadn't read the scenes of Harriet Tubman and the Underground Railroad, then there's a huge disconnect. I had to do my research after watching this movie, and I'll get into that in a little bit. Did it draw me in? Yes, it drew me in. It drew me in. Very emotional. I cried throughout the movie. And even after the movie, I just had to sit down and just take it all in. I couldn't move. I had to take it all in. A lot of people are saying, oh, it was washed down. It was watered down, whitewashed. And I can agree. We're going to get to that. But was it impactful? Yes. The courageousness of this woman. The fearlessness in this woman. Like I said, the sacrifice of this woman. The sacrifice and the courageousness, that is the emotional part. That's what just had me so caught up. I don't know anybody as courageous as she is. And anybody who would sacrifice themselves as many times as she did, there was a bounty on this woman's head. She knew they were after her, but she didn't let it stop her. She did not let it. Her courage is relentless. Her sacrifice was relentless. So those are the things that drew me in. That's the part that I'm focused on. That's what drew me in. They did good with that. They showed her courage. They did great with that. Her tenacity, they did great with that. Her sacrifices, they did wonderful with that. They hit that. That's what they really hit. Okay? That's what they really hit. Now, what did they miss? So this is why I say yes, it was Rotten Tomatoes. And yes, it was a brilliant work of art. And the brilliant work of art was what they were showing as far as her walking the walk and talking the talk. This part is the Rotten Tomatoes. Now, when you decide that you're going to film a biography of such a heroic, iconic, courageous woman, you have to do it right. And you can't sugarcoat it. And you can't water it down, because it was watered down. I've done my research. If you do your research, you will know that you will know that she freed more than hundreds of slaves. In fact, she freed thousands. If you do your research, you'll find that the visions and the dreams that she had, now I don't want to spoil this for anybody, but you'll know that that river scene, that was real. And I'm going to go down the list of a lot of things that was real. My research, what I found in my research by reading the two books, one that was written about her after her death, one that was written while she was alive, and the writer took direct stories from Harriet Tubman. And the purpose of them writing this book in this particular time, and when I say them, I say Harriet Tubman and the writer, is because they were trying to raise money for Harriet Tubman. She died a poor lady. And so in efforts to raise money for her living and to help her take care of her parents, they decided to write a book for her. And she's telling live stories of her experiences. And this is the book that I read. And so and I've also watched the two movies. Of course, I watched this Harriet Tubman movie. I watched the movie that was played by Cicely Tyson. That movie was a 3-hour long movie. And I can say that movie was more detailed than this. It was more detailed than this Harriet Tubman movie. So, me reading the two books that I've read, me watching the two movies that I've read, I was able to find correlations in all of them. And then I took things that she mentioned verbatim that she partook in. And some of the names that she mentioned in the book that she assisted to write. Now, here's some facts in the movie that I found based on my research. Of course, she was a slave. Her mom's name really was Rit. Dad's name Ben. And her mom, Rit, this is a spoiler. So if you don't want to know this because you haven't seen it yet, you may as well go ahead and cut this off right now, because I'm about to give away some spoilers, okay? If you haven't seen it and you want everything to be a surprise and a shock, and you want raw shock, then just cut it off right now. All right? Bye-bye. Now, for those who want to know the details, here we go. She was a slave, of course. Her mom, Rit, was really a free woman. And I'm looking off my notes, y'all, so don't let that distract you. Her mom really was a free woman, which made Harriet and her siblings free as well. But no one ever told or admitted to Rit, which was Harriet Tubman's mother, that she was a free woman. She was free because her slave owner died. Well, her slave owner promised her freedom when she reached the age of 45. And her upon her death, and the slave owner died, and her mom made it to the age of 45. So that made her mom Rit free, and her siblings as well. But nobody ever told her that, and that happened to a lot of us. It happened to a lot of us. So she really was a free woman, but her mom just didn't know it. Sam Green, Thomas Garrett, Sam Green was real. He was a real guy in the movie. Thomas Garrett, he was a Quaker. He was real, and he helped to free over 2,000 slaves. It's a white man, Thomas Garrett, who was a Quaker, helped to free over 2,000 slaves. William Steele, the black guy who interviewed the slaves when they made it to Philadelphia, he was a real guy. He was real. Um, Her head was cracked. That whole story that they give behind that, that's real. Directions by God and visions, those are real. And that came out of her mouth. Um, when, well, let me go on. Of course, she couldn't read or write. And I bring that up because she was able to make it from south to the north. And, all the bounties and the posters that they have posted up on her, even though she couldn't read or write, she was, with the help of people around her, with the help of God, she was able to figure out her way. And excuse me, in the movie, they really thought it was a weakness because she couldn't read and write, especially when she's traveling to the South by herself, a woman traveling to the South by herself and freeing slaves and bringing them back to the North. They really thought that there was a weakness and something really dangerous for an individual that can't read, but yet she was able to make the journey successfully. The husband situation, that was real, and I just say husband situation because I don't want to really give too much detail and spoil it, but that was real. um Her father refusing to look at her and her siblings, for those who've seen the movie, that was real. And when I was in the movie, people kind of chuckled about that, but that was real because this man was a really honest man. And if he said he didn't see something, he really wanted to tell the truth about it. And they really believed her father. And he was known as an honest man. So that was real. The fact that she carried a gun, that was real. Um, the communication by way of song around overseers and masters, that was real. When she would go to the field and sing, that was real. And most of the songs in the movie was real. Most of those songs in the movie was real. And she would, in the book that I read, in the book that I read that they were selling as a fundraiser to make money for her, she was actually singing those songs in the book. And I matched the song up with the movie, and those were real songs. So they did communicate by way of song. And of course, it was code. Um, it was code in saying, I'll be gone in the morning. Or I won't. I'm leaving, and I won't be back, or I'm coming back. Well, anyway, those songs were cold, so the whites couldn't understand what they were saying, and they were able to get a message across that way. Her creed, "Be free or die," that was real. The river scene, that was real. The river scene when she stopped and they were supposed to go across a bridge, across something, and she said, "No, make a left," that was real. She spoke of that in her book. She spoke of that. Uh, during her mission, the Fugitive Slave Act was passed, which caused them to alter things. They were no longer going to Philadelphia and New York. They then had to extend their journey to Canada. That was real. And I think Canada was like 500 or 600 miles away from Maryland. That was real. That was real. And so them, getting up there by any means necessary. They had to make that journey. Uh, she led soldiers down south to help rescue. Well, there was two missions going on. One was I think, to uh get torpedoes from the river that the rebels had placed there. Another one was to cut off the supply of the rebels, and in doing so, they freed slaves. So, let me see here. Let me see, I think I had this in my notes on down the line where I can give you more detail. If not, hopefully I can remember to give it to you in more detail. The fact that she never lost any lives, none. That's got to let you know that she was led by a higher power. And I'm just so frustrated by the fact that I was looking at a review of two guys, and they thought, they were kind of making fun of it and making dry jokes of this mysticism, and she would fall to her knees and ha 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 ha, like God was talking to her. you know if you don't have a spiritual connection with God, you would never know that these things can happen. But if you've experienced God, there's nothing that anybody can tell you. um I doubt that this woman would lie about this. Come on, just think about it. She had to be led by a greater power in order to accomplish accomplish all the runs that she made, and she never lost any lives. She never had to shoot anybody. She did carry a gun. She never had to shoot anybody, and nobody's life was ever lost with her. Think about that. And this is a woman who couldn't read and write. Think about that. All right. Um Now, this was, I don't know the exacts, because as far as the bounty on her head, there was a bounty. One book said the bounty was 10,000, another says 12,000, one movie says 40,000. Just know that there was a huge bounty for her. And I mean, when I'm telling you, this woman Moses, which they began to call her, she had these slave masters and slave owners. They were in an uproar. And not because of her, but because slaves were just able to escape and go up north anyway and be free. They were losing money. And we have to remember that these slaves, that was an investment. That was money. They were losing money when these slaves ran away. And I mean, boy, they were after Harriet Tubman. Facts from the book, Scenes of the Life of Harriet Tubman. This is a book in which she assisted in writing. She gave her story, and a lady took note from her, and they were trying to raise funds for her living. And these are facts from the book. Okay? The facts that I read before, they came from, they were just facts in the movie that I found based on my research. Okay, what I read before was facts in the movie. So I was trying to correlate the facts that I had researched with the movie. So that's that. Now, facts from the book. Again, the book in which she gave her story, and the writer wrote these things down for her. And this book is called Scenes of the Life of Harriet Tubman. Now, just different facts here. She says that when they did travel, and there were babies traveling with them from the south to the north, she would give the babies opium to keep them quiet on the missions. During the Civil War, she was sent into rebel lines as a spy by Union commanders. Again, she was a spy. Colonel Montgomery was appointed command, and Harriet Tubman, with several men under her, were sent down south to complete a mission on Union gunboats, on raids that were intended to take up torpedoes placed by the rebels in the river, to destroy railroad and bridges, and to cut off supplies from rebel troops. While doing so, they rescued 700 to 800 slaves. So Harriet Tubman tells this story in which they were on gunboats going south. And when the slaves, she said as they were traveling down the river, that they were passing slave plantations, and slaves were working in the field. And as they began to notice these black men, they were black men that she was appointed to command along with Colonel Montgomery. They noticed the boats, and they know they were gunboats. And a lot of the slaves in mid-rake, in mid-cooking, whatever it was that they were doing, they dropped what they were doing and ran from that plantation to the riverboats. And she said there were women running to the boats with children, one wrapped around her forehead, the other one wrapped around her neck, one tied to her hip, and they running for the gunboats, running for their freedom, running to freedom. She also said that some people had pigs that they was running with and bringing to the boats. And I mean, she just tells this dramatic story of the slaves that saw them coming down the river and how they just swarmed them, dropped what they were doing, and ran toward their freedom. And that is a scene that is in the that's a scene that's in the movie, and that is true. And that came from her mouth. And she laughs about it, and she says she's never seen nothing like it. So you really have to find that book, read Scenes of the Life of Harriet Tubman. Also, she was a nurse during the Civil War. She gave money and clothes to homes for the elderly, and she used her own home. Now, this is after the emancipation. During the Civil War, she was a nurse. She gave money and clothes to homes for the elderly, and she also used her own home for elderly and for children. All right, and those were the facts that I read in Scenes of the Life of Harriet Tubman. Now, a biography. When one decides to turn a biography into the movie, it is imperative that you capture the truth. Fiction has no place in a biographical movie. None whatsoever. This film was watered down because, for many different reasons. One is because, okay, so she's helping them to escape from slavery to freedom. Well, in the movie, they didn't even show what slavery was like. They didn't even show what. So here's my question. What were they escaping from? It's almost as though the writer started a book. Let's say the book has 10 chapters. It's almost like the writer started the book on the 5th chapter, assuming that everybody coming to read the book already knew the first 1 through 4 chapters. Already knew it. And started at the 5th chapter. That's the whitewashing. That's the ignoring. That's the lack of acknowledgement. See, when you're doing a biography, in my opinion, you have to show the whole. She was a freedom fighter. She helped to save people from slavery and help them escape from slavery. What were they escaping from? You have to show the whippings. You have to show the living conditions. You have to show the rapes, the abuse, the mistreatment. You have to show those things. You have to show the punishments. You have to show the day in a life of a slave and the separation of families. You have to show those things, the cruelty of slavery. Slavery itself, just slavery alone was cruel. And I don't think they captured that. That's what they didn't capture. Okay, so when you say slavery, we know what slavery is, right? But just to say slavery and then to see the details of slavery, those are two different things, in my opinion. And I don't think they focused on it enough. What were they running from? And the children of this generation, and for those who don't even know their history, they need to know the details of slavery. And I don't think they captured that. 2, biographical movie. You can't afford to add fiction in that. And this character, Big Along, this big, husky black man, was the villain in a slave movie. What you think about that? A black man, a villain in a slave movie. What you think about that? The most cruel parts of this movie. The most cruel parts of this movie was acted out by a black man toward a black woman. Hmm. Here you go again, right? In a slave movie, the villain, the most cruel parts was played by a black man toward a black woman. Isn't that something? How the script can be flipped. And his role was a very important role in the movie. It showed a man who was a black slave catcher who was the best around, better than the white man. That was helping to hunt Harriet Tubman down. And in fact, tried to kill her. And called her a bitch. And when asked why he was a slave catcher, it was so that he can get the money to screw all the white hoes that he can. This is in a slave movie. This is a smack in the face to Harriet Tubman. It's a smack in the face to America. It's a smack in the face to black people. It's disrespectful. It's demeaning to add this character in our history, which children will walk away, and not just children, but people who don't know their history, they will walk away thinking that this was a true character. Not a true character, but a real person in her life. When it wasn't. This is a fictional character in a movie that's supposed to be a biography. Highly disrespectful. And the guy who played Bigelow, what's his name again? Omar J. Dorsey. I know he want a check. He's an actor. But sir, I really think you need to be selective. More selective of the roles that you choose to play. This was a fictional character in a movie that's supposed to be a biography. And this black man in a slave movie plays a villain. I got a problem with that. And see, this is what happens to our history. It gets watered down. There's fictional characters thrown in it. See, we already have lost our history anyway. We already don't know where we come from in Africa. A lot of us we don't speak the language. We don't eat the foods. We don't know the tribes that we come from. Don't know the country that we come from. And so here in America, once again, when we decide to educate the world of African American heroic figures, we decide to add, it's supposed to be a biography, we decide to add something fictional in it. And the fictional portion of this movie is a black man who killed a black woman in a slave movie. A black slave catcher who killed a black woman in a slave movie. Y'all, we got to think, open our eyes and wake up and realize what's going on. Our history here in America is being watered down as well. And this is something that everybody that watches this movie should be aware of, and you should really be upset about this. You should really be because this is not our history. This is a false history. It's not our history. It's fake. Bigger Long did not exist. I've read 2 books. I've watched the movies. He didn't exist in any of them. And even if they wanted to, period, forget even if they wanted to, a fictional character should not be in this movie. Not playing that role. If they were going to add a fictional character in there, why would this fictional character be a black man that kills a black woman in a slave movie? Weren't we the slaves? Weren't we the victims of slavery? So in our movie in which we're victimized, they use and show another black man who victimizes us even more when it was the whites that really victimized us. So, when I look at that, I think of the little white kid that may see this movie, or the little black kid that may see this movie. And this man is big and he does look scary. They will walk away from this movie looking at a big black man as a scary black man or a mean black man. And out of all the people in the movie, he was the creepiest looking one. This is what I'm pissed about. This is what I'm pissed about. Once again. Now, that's my issue with the movie. Now, the controversy surrounding this movie is a Nigerian British actor playing the role of Harriet Tubman. Is this right or wrong? Well, she came from Africa, as we did too, so we do share that. But she doesn't share the spirit of African American slavery. She doesn't share that. Now, when I was watching it, yes, I was drawn in. I felt like she was really good, a good actress. But in my opinion, I think there was, and I'm probing my mind to figure out who would have played a better role, because I don't think it was as soulful as it could have been in terms, excuse me, of Harriet Tubman. Again, the girl, she's a good actress, and I was drawn in, but I think it could have, those shoes, somebody else could have filled those shoes better. I do feel that. And I believe that the reason is because she doesn't share the same African American spirit of slavery that we do. She's not closely related. She's Nigerian / British. Nigerians don't know anything about slavery. I mean, they do, but not in the way that African Americans do. See, we grew up in I'm not gonna say a slave culture, but we grew up with our grandmothers and grandfathers who carried on some of the dialect of the slave and eating some of the foods of the slave and sharing some of the culture of the slaves. Pig feet, hog maw, you know, chitlins, that slave eating. We grew up with that. We grew up with hearing grandmama say, "I'll be there directly." That's slave talk. Or where she at, grandma? She down yonder somewhere. That's slave talk. Gimme that. That's slave talk. Instead of give me, gimme. Ain't ya? That's slave talk. Instead of aren't you? Ain't ya? That's slave talk. So I'm sure in, Britain somewhere they have some type of, something that was tied to slavery as well. But we grew up with some of the language, some of the food, some of the, have your grandmama just ever been in the kitchen and you had the flu and she boiled bones for you, chicken bones, to get the bone marrow out the chicken? Because that's to boost up your immune system. See, that comes from slavery. Remedies, medicinal remedies, that comes from slavery. And we are closely connected to that. We share that soulfulness. Not to say that she doesn't share that, but she doesn't share it as closely as we do. And that's that spirit that did not come through to me 100%. To me, that was the disconnect. Is she a good actress? Yes. But I feel like if it was an African American who had that history, that slave history in their genes and their bones and their spirit, and grew up with that culture, that they would have filled those shoes a whole lot better. Okay? So, That's my opinion about that role. Now, people are having an issue with her comments that she made about African American language. I have an issue with that too. I feel like, if you're going to play an African American role, you can't degrade the people. That doesn't make sense. If you want their support, you're playing an African American role that's going to be released in America. It is an American movie, and you want to uh, and you want to negatively comment about African American dialect or language. That's a problem. You got to be smarter than that. So, I agree with that controversy. You got to be smarter than that, lady. You got to respect us. And here's the issue with Comcast. I haven't dug deeply into this. Whew, goodness. But here it goes. And I'm reading from my notes. Here's the issue with Comcast. Comcast is the parent company of Focus Films, the film's production company. Issues with Comcast stem from a $20 billion civil rights lawsuit filed by Hollywood entertainment executive Byron Allen, who claims that the cable giant discriminated against him, refusing to carry his channels. Allen's lawsuit cites the 1866 Act. If y'all don't know the 1866 Act, please look it up. Educate yourselves. 1866 Act. I can't come to you acting like I knew what this act was. I had to look it up myself. And I did not just look it up on Wikipedia. Please don't look it up on Wikipedia. Anybody can post an update on Wikipedia. It's not a reliable source. Do your research. Get several sources. I wish I had wrote down the sources in which I got it from. But look at several sources. Don't just Google one thing. What's the 1866 Act? And read that and think that you know what it is. Look up several reliable sources. All right. So Allen's lawsuit cites the 1866 Act. And the first Civil Rights Act legislation passed to protect the rights of emancipated blacks after the Civil War, which says African Americans have the same rights as whites in business contracts. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that Allen could use the law as a basis for his claims. And he used this law while he was filing for a lawsuit against Comcast. He used the 1866 Act. Okay? And again, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that Allen could use that law as the basis for his claim. And again, that law says African Americans have the same rights as white business contracts. Okay? And the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that Allen could use that law as a basis for his claims. Now, Comcast is petitioning the U.S. Supreme Court to overturn that decision. To overturn the 1866 Act. Comcast is doing this. Comcast is petitioning the U.S. Supreme Court to overturn the 1866 Act. Ain't that something? How many people got Comcast? Raise your hand. Me? And the hearing is set for November 13th. So that's the controversy surrounding this movie. Again, Comcast is a parent company of Focus Films. And Focus Films is the production company, the company that produced this movie, Harriet Tubman. I'm going to repeat that. Comcast is the parent company of Focus Films. And this is Harriet Tubman's film production company. Focus Films is the production company that produced the Harriet Tubman movie. All right. And this information that I just read, comes from the Philadelphia Inquirer. That's where I got the information from. So, again, there's controversy surrounding this movie. One, again, the Nigerian British actor playing the role of Harriet Tubman. People don't think she deserved to play that role. They think that an African American deserves to play that role. And also the negative comments that she stated about the language that the ghetto talk, ghetto language, African Americans have a ghetto speech, something like that. The negative commentary that she made about African Americans. And then the other controversy is the Comcast controversy. So that's what's going on with this movie. You choose if you want to pay your money to go see it. A lot of people are boycotting this movie. Before I heard about the boycotts and the controversies, I went to see it. I went to see the movie on the second day, and a lot of this stuff was out. The Comcast situation was already out before the movie was aired. And all of the controversies that I just mentioned was already out before the movie was aired, but I ignored all of it. And I went to see the movie. I was very excited when I heard that the movie was going to be was going to be shown. And I rushed out to go see it. And these are the things that I found out after digging and researching. Should this movie be written and shown again? Yes, it should be. So what does that say? I don't think it was properly told. It wasn't properly told. Did they focus on Harriet Tubman assisting in the escape of slaves? Yes, they did. And I think that's about the only thing that they got right. I do. I think they punched that. They power punched that. And I think that was the only thing that they got right. If that's what they wanted to do with the movie, just focus on her achievement in helping the slaves escape, then they did that. But where they messed up at is adding that fictional character. That's where they messed up at. And even her slave owner, showing him as the man that killed the black man that was trying to kill Harriet Tubman. That whole scene, that part of the movie, that was just all wrong. All wrong. All wrong. So when it comes to, again, Harriet Tubman helping the slaves to escape, they did it. They nailed it. They hit it. But there were a lot of things that were whitewashed outside of that. There was a lot of things that were watered down. Fictional scenes and characters should not have been placed in a movie that's supposed to be a biography. And I think they should have showed the rest of Harriet Tubman's endeavors. This woman, again, after helping the slaves escape, she played a major role in the Civil War. She was a nurse. And she led troops back down south to free more slaves. She was a spy. She was a scout. And I think they really should have honed in on that. She assisted the elderly. She assisted children. She supported 2 schools. I think they really should have honed in on those things, not just, her helping the slaves to escape. They should have honed in on the other things, because this woman was something else. She was something else. And for those who took the spiritual parts of, and she did have seizures. There were scenes in the movies where she would fall down, and those were seizures. But she also had dreams, vivid dreams, that she states herself, that came from God, and that she was led to do this or led to go that way, and she had premonitions, all those things. When she had a dream about her parents being in trouble, her father being in trouble, that was true. And she states all of this. So those people who are making fun of it, it shouldn't be taken lightly, because anybody with common sense, you must ask yourself, how is it that she was able to go back and forth and not get caught not one time? Not one time. Never lost a life. She was guided by something. Ain't no human being that supreme. She was guided by a higher power. To know not to cross the bridge, and that she could walk across the river, in which she states was real, a real dream that she had. She had to be guided. How would she know that? To know that her father was in trouble and that she needed to go down south and rescue her parents, how would she know that? So those weren't fictional scenes in the movie. Those were real. Came out of her own mouth from the book that I read. So anyways, that's my commentary. Please leave your comments below. And remember, if you want to agree, that's fine, but we can respectfully disagree with one another, and we can agree to disagree. And this is a conversation that needs to be had. If you have children, talk to your children. Talk to your children about the about Harriet Tubman, and you never know what spark it might ignite within your children. Feed them our history, and again, do your research on Harriet Tubman. And one of the books that I read, Scenes of the Life of Harriet Tubman, that is a book that was written by a writer. I forget her name, but she took direct note from Harriet Tubman. They sat across from each other, and she took notes for Harriet Tubman because she couldn't write, so she had this lady to write the book for. So I'm out, y'all. Fam, leave your comments. And if you bring any negativity to this channel, you will be blocked. I love you guys. Let's create this family. Bye.